This is the Kia EV6 GT-Line, and it is pretty much the best electric car you can buy. No, seriously, it is really good. It goes really quickly, it looks amazing, and it can go nearly 500 kilometers on a full charge. Based on the same platform as the Hyundai Ioniq 5, it's amazing just how similar yet different the two cars are. They both are marketed as SUVs, but they really do look like sort of large hatchbacks. There's a number of shared components under the hood and also on the inside, plus the two cars have the same powertrain, but on the outside, there's really no mistaking them for each other. The front of the EV6 almost has this sort of clamshell shape to it. It's really rounded and comes down here to the nose, which has just a hint of the tiger nose kind of design to it that is a Kia signature look. The light clusters here look really good. They've got an aggressive look to them, and all up, a lot of people have actually said to me that they do prefer the look of this car to Tesla's comparatively plain looking front end. This GT-Line model is finished in Moonscape, which is a matte paint finish, and it looks really good. It's a nice contrast with the piano black that's used on some of the accents on the side here. And side on, you actually can see that this really does have a bit of a sort of hatchback kind of shape to it. We've got big round wheel arches there with 20-inch rims that have a really nice design. They look like they're sort of constantly in motion even when they're sitting still, and they're wrapped in Continental rubber. And I also really like this spoiler at the top here, which actually has a little side light on it. It's a nice little design touch. The EV6 looks good from just about any angle, but its rear end is probably the most eye-catching. We've got these really cool looking light clusters here with these nice sort of diamond designs on both sides here, and this long thin LED strip that joins the two light clusters together. At the back here, we've also got the charging port, which opens at the push of a button. Here, using a 350 kilowatt high-speed charger, you can get the battery to 80% in about 18 minutes. Underneath the powered tailgate, which I'll need the key fob to open, there's also a kick under the floor feature, but I can't demonstrate that right now because the car's unlocked. Is a 480 litre storage space, which is actually really usable. We've got a cargo blind up there too. Lower the back seats, you get 1,280 litres of space. You can do that really easily with a couple of handles on both sides of the boot there. Underneath the floor, not a whole heap to see, just some more charging cables and a mobility kit to repair the tyres, and that's about it. Underneath the front lid, we've got the somewhat unfortunately named frunk, which gives you a not very usable 20 litres of storage space. You can probably put your charging cables in there if you like. But while I'm here, I might as well talk about the powertrain, which is the same as the Ioniq 5 in this top spec GT-Line model. So we've got two electric motors, one on the front axle, one on the rear, and together they produce a combined power output of 239 kilowatts and 605 Newton meters of torque, which propels this car to 100 kilometers per hour in 5.2 seconds. There is a 77 kilowatt hour battery on the floor weighing around about 500 kilograms, and a full charge will get you a claimed range of 484 kilometers, probably not quite that far in the real world. And this car has a braked towing capacity of 1,600 kilograms, which is actually more than the diesel-powered Jeep Compass I reviewed a couple of weeks ago. Inside the EV6, you really want for nothing. It's all here and it looks amazing. It is a fantastic cabin, and as it shares a lot of the same underpinnings with the Ioniq 5, the layout and functions and features of a lot of the equipment in here is actually very similar between the two cars, but I think I like this car's design just a bit better, but that's maybe just a personal thing. I really like the finish up here on top of the dash and these LEDs that change color depending on the drive mode you're in, but you can customize those as well. This is just a fantastic interior. The centerpiece, of course, are the two 12-inch black screens here in front of the driver, and they look incredible. There is so much customization available on this system. The software that runs on them is pretty much identical to the one used in the Ioniq 5. Has been customized a little bit for Kia, but other than that, they're pretty much the same. There are menus and menus of options here. There is so much customization available, so much useful information too. Of course, you can view the parking cameras through here. You can even change the artificial engine noise that this car generates. There's even a science fiction-like cyber sound. And at the push of a button, you can easily find the nearest charging station. The only thing that's really missing is wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. But the reason that this car doesn't have that really just comes down to a legal issue. It's not a technological one. So I imagine as soon as that issue is sorted, it'll just be a simple software update to turn them on. There is a 14-speaker Meridian surround sound system, which really does sound incredible. The only thing it's missing is just a little bit of bottom end. I like a bit more bass. Underneath the screens, we've got the air vents, and then beneath that, a row of shortcut buttons, which will look familiar to anyone who's driven a Hyundai or Kia lately. But watch what happens when I push this button. Like magic, they turn into climate controls. So now the volume knob has now become a temperature knob for the air conditioning. Underneath that, we've got a big open area with two USBs that are just inconveniently out of reach for the driver, a USB-C and a USB-A. 12-volt outlet and another battery outlet there too, and a big storage area here, which would be great for a handbag or something like that. And then we've got the floating center console here with seat controls for the heating and cooling of the seats, as well as the heated steering wheel. I really like the EV power button here that's just angled up and pointing at the driver. That's a very nice little touch. Rotary dial here for, well, you can't really say gear changes because there are no gears, but basically puts you into reverse, neutral and drive. Auto hold for the brakes, and probably one of the best executions of a wireless charging pad for a phone I've ever seen. It just sits here very nicely, and look how easily your phone just slides into it. It is so convenient. A couple of cup holders there, which aren't very big, and then we've got a smallish center console bin underneath a nice little textured lid here. Head-up display on the windscreen actually also includes augmented reality. So rather than just basic navigation directions, you actually get animated arrows showing you where to go, which is a really nice touch. The instrument cluster in front of the driver, again, runs the same software as the Ioniq 5. It changes with whatever drive mode you're in, and my only criticism of it is that the speedo is actually up here in the top left-hand corner, and just like the Ioniq 5, when you've got your hand on the wheel like that, your speed is actually not visible, which is a little bit annoying. It'd be good if it was in the center, but mind you, it is on the head-up display. A unique two-spoke steering wheel here with cruise controls and audio controls, and a nice flat bottom. We've got the drive mode button here to change between the three drive modes of normal, eco and sport. It has a nice leather wrap with stitching on it. Feels pretty good. The seats are very comfortable. They're artificial suede with vegan leather accents. There is an infinite amount of electric adjustment for the driver and front passenger. They're heated and cooled, and there is also a recline mode here, which is very useful for when you are waiting for your car to charge. If you're going to be here for 18 minutes or so at a high-speed charger, you might as well get comfortable. So you can comfortably recline and have a nice little rest while you're waiting for your car's battery to charge up, and then the push of a button, you're back into your driving position. The seating position itself is actually really good. The front bonnet does kind of slope away with that clamshell kind of look, so you can't quite see to the front corners, but visibility is still really, really good. The rear window is actually quite small. You're not seeing a heck of a lot out of the back of that. You might be relying on the reversing cameras a bit more. Same goes for the blind spots through the rear windows there. The sills are quite high, but there are wing cameras that come on the instrument cluster in front of the driver whenever you turn the indicator on, so they certainly help out there. The back seat of the EV6 gives you a huge amount of room, and I'm 190 centimeters behind my own seating position, and that seating position is actually fairly reclined, and there's still loads of room back here. Knees nowhere near the seat in front of me, almost 10 centimeters difference actually. But the downside of that though is that there is very little toe room. My toes really are jammed in there. There's no separate zone of climate control either for backseat passengers, which does seem like a bit of an omission at a car at this price point, but we do get a couple of air vents here in the B pillar. We've got USB-C outputs here in the seat in front of the passengers, and there is also an armrest with cup holders. Headroom, not too bad here, just touching the ceiling, and it is a bit dark back here. The Ioniq 5 has a panoramic sunroof, where this car just has a smaller regular sunroof, so with this dark headliner, it is just a little bit gloomy, but it is pretty comfortable. These seats do recline just a little bit. You can push them back further if you remove the cargo shade from the boot. So I think all up, backseat passengers, kids in particular, will be very happy back here. Okay, so you've got a wide car like the Kia EV6 and only a narrow car space to keep it in. And, you know, squeezing your way into it every day means a lot of sucking your gut in and potentially scratching the paintwork on your way through. But Kia have the solution with their automatic parking feature, where the EV6 will park itself beautifully in just about any space. So I've had this car now for a week and I've done around about 250 odd Ks in it. According to the battery charging level here on the dashboard, it tells me I've got 146 Ks of range left, which, you know, a week of daily driving the kids to and from school and going to the supermarket and a few other little bits and pieces is pretty good. You could probably, if you really push it, stretch it out to 10 days to 2 weeks between charges if you're just doing regular daily commuting, you know, no more than about 30 Ks a day. If I had one small complaint about the way this car drives, it's that the steering is a bit on the lifeless and numb side. It just feels a bit too light. It really does need a bit more weight. But other than that, this car handles extremely well on our potholed roads. It's very smooth, it's very comfortable, it doesn't become unsettled at all. It's had a local suspension tune and you can tell that it's well equipped to handle Australian roads. The paddles on the steering wheel control the amount of regenerative braking, which allows you to add a bit of extra charge to the battery when the car is slowing down, and drive with only one pedal when you've got it set on max. And after you've gotten used to it, which doesn't really take all that long, it does feel a bit weird going back to having to use the brake pedal to stop the car. Look, when you're in maximum mode, you do have to use the brake pedal sometimes, but not nearly as much. You really can slow the car right down to a stop if you get off the accelerator at just the right time. Okay, now let's put it into sport mode and see what this 605 Newton meters of torque feels like in a 0 to 100 dash, which Kia says you should be able to do in 5.2 seconds. Whoa! There's a little bit of hesitation. When you put your foot down to the floor, it just waits half a second and then it goes. It's not quite as crazy quick as a Tesla, but it's pretty good. I do like the simplicity of the drive modes in this car. It's just 3 options: Sport, Normal, Eco. It's not like a BMW M car where you can go through and change how quickly it's going to change gears and change the weight of the steering and how sensitive the accelerator is. There's none of that. It's just Sport, Normal, Eco. So this car has gotten a lot of attention over the week that I've had it, especially yesterday when I was down there underneath the harbour bridge filming my bits to camera. I had so many people coming up and talking to me about this car, even taking photos with it, which has only ever happened with one other car that I've reviewed before, and that was the Tesla Model 3 a couple of years ago when they were still relatively new on the roads. This car gets a lot of attention because there's just not that many of them. In the week I've had it, I don't think I've seen another EV6 on the road. The only things that are really missing from this car that I would love it to have would be a panoramic sunroof like the Hyundai Ioniq 5, and I know that people are kind of roll their eyes at this, but I really like it, a seat massager. Once you've had a seat massager in a car, there's no going back. There is of course one thing that a Tesla does that a Kia or indeed any other electric car that I've come across doesn't do, and that's things like being able to watch Netflix on the center console screen, play games, watch YouTube. There's none of that here, unfortunately. So not only does the EV6 look like a smaller car on the outside, but it also drives like a smaller car because it's so zippy and nimble. You don't actually realize quite how big it is until you go to park it in a relatively small spot and you think to yourself, okay, this is actually a reasonably large, small SUV. I'm going to be sad giving this back tomorrow. It's going to be weird getting back into an old-fashioned internal combustion engine car. Design, of course, is a subjective thing, and although there is a lot of commonality between Hyundai's Ioniq 5 and Kia's EV6, for me, I think the Kia wins the day. It just has such a unique design. It looks so good, and I think it's not only one of the best looking electric cars on the road, it's one of the best looking cars on the road, full stop. It certainly looks a lot more distinctive than Tesla's Model Y. But it is expensive, especially in GT-Line guise, and there is a full throttle GT version of this car coming out next year, which will no doubt knock a couple of seconds off the 0 to 100 time and drain your bank account by a further 15 to 20 grand. But do you really need that when the EV6 GT-Line pretty much does it all?